So you consider yourself an anarchist or libertarian socialist, I believe. One species of anarchist, pardon the phrase, since we're talking about biology and all, is called free market anarchists. They argue that market societies become a problem only via corporate capitalism or, as in Milton Friedman's brand of conservative libertarianism, and that market abolitionism is tossing out the baby with the bathwater. Do you think there can be a place for markets in a non-capitalistic, perhaps even non-statist society? I know we're sort of quickly jumping into this. Maybe we should backtrack a little bit and discuss what you think about capitalism and markets first.
First of all, I mean, I have to kind of give the same response that Gandhi gave when he was asked what he thought about Western civilization. Maybe it'd be a good idea.
Right.
Okay, one can say the same about markets. Maybe it would be a good idea, but there are no market societies. I mean, the only market societies that, the only social systems that approximate market societies are poor, colonized, underdeveloped countries where it's been rammed down their throats, and that goes way back. I mean, if the United States, say, had ever been a market society, we would now be pursuing our comparative advantage of exporting fish and fur, the few scattered people who lived here. The U.S. developed, as did every other rich and developed society, by radical violation of market principles. Extremely high tariffs, the most protectionist country in the world through its period of growth, state intervention to manage and control industry, industrial policy. Right at this moment, it's essentially a logical impossibility for the United States to enter into free trade agreements because our own economy depends crucially on the state sector. That's where we get computers and the internet and telecommunications and the containers that allow trade and lasers, civilian aircraft. Just look across the board. Relies very heavily on the state sector for its dynamism, its innovation, and so on. So it's very remote from a free market society, and so is every other one that had choices. The societies that take, say, the modern so-called tigers, the East Asian tigers with great growth period, Taiwan, South Korea, China, Japan, they did it the same way the currently rich societies did, namely by violating market rules.
But you do separate, I assume, markets from capitalism itself, correct?
Well, I don't know what capitalism is supposed to be. If capitalism is supposed to be a market society, it's never existed, except in countries where it's been rammed down their throats.
Okay. Well, we have a situation now, obviously, in the United States, which is pretty terrible. And it is a statist society, and it is a capitalist society. Yeah. Do you think we ought to shift back to some sort of New Deal social welfare state model like we saw in Scandinavia several decades ago? Perhaps one, in other words, with even regulated markets, but not, corporate capitalism, if that's possible. Do you think that's a remedy, or at least on the short term?
First of all, the New Deal was a corporate state capitalist society. Roosevelt himself was strongly supported by a major sector of corporate capitalism. It's been shown by research of Thomas Ferguson and others. Roosevelt's, a lot of his strongest support was coming from the high-tech, internationally oriented sector of American state capitalism, like GE and others. And the modern corporation, its modern form goes back about a century and earlier predecessors. But New Deal-style welfare state measures were introduced under tremendous popular pressure, and that has extended. I mean, there wasn't any Medicare under the New Deal, or Medicaid. Popular pressure has continually attempted to bring about government involvement, intervention in ensuring social welfare. I mean, for decades, and right now, large majority of the population, usually runs around 2/3 or more, is in favor of a national health care system of the kind that most other practically every other industrial society has. Something kind of like maybe Medicare extended to the population. That's an overwhelming majority of the population. And that's the highest domestic concern of people in poll after poll. Right now, the latest polls, the highest concern is Iraq. Second highest concern is healthcare. Well, how come these measures aren't enacted? Well, because they're regarded as by elites as what's called politically impossible, meaning the insurance, Wall Street's opposed, the financial institutions are opposed, the pharmaceutical corporations are opposed. It doesn't matter if 90% of the population wants it. So therefore, it's not on the political agenda. It is, interestingly, getting on the political agenda now because a major sector of U.S. corporate state capitalism is supporting it, beginning to support it, namely manufacturing industry, who are being harmed by the extreme inefficiency of the privatized healthcare system here. It's twice the per capita expenditures of any place in the world, other industrial society, and some of the worst outcomes.
Well, I was asking about that because whether it be New Deal or even the Keynesian kind of model that we saw in Sweden in the 60s and 70s, there have been economists who have argued, you know a few of them, Robin Hanel, Takis Fotopoulos, that this kind of social democracy has failed not only because of outside pressure, neoliberal globalization, but also because it's sort of putting a human face on capitalism, and it's capitalism itself that's the actual problem. So it's sort of putting a Band-Aid on a wound rather than curing it. What's your thoughts on the social welfare state in that sense, even if we mean it to be something that's temporary in order to roll back the neoliberal agenda?
Well, I think, take someone who's a committed revolutionary, thinks we really have to throw out the whole capitalist, whatever there is of a capitalist system and a market system and so on. Take someone like that. They're still reformists. I mean, all the people you mentioned are still in favor of, say, developing a decent healthcare system through government intervention because that's the only option today. None of them say, let's not improve lives for people because we'd like to see a revolutionary change. They'd all be in favor, for example, take, say, OSHA, safety and health controls in the workplace. I mean, especially for years, it's been declining. Under Bush, it's practically disappeared. But everyone you mentioned would be in favor of strengthening those regulations. They're government regulations. Because what you're in favor of, if you're serious, and the people you mentioned are, is pressing the institutions to their limits, seeing what they can achieve when you're not going to get mass popular movements trying to overthrow the institutions until people recognize they cannot satisfy our needs. Okay? Therefore, you try to press reform as far as possible within the structure of existing institutions. Meanwhile, developing alternative institutions from within, building the future in the present society that goes on simultaneously.
Right. That's sort of what the next question was. In an email conversation you and I had, you said that libertarian socialism is a long-term goal, one that you and I both, I think, agree with is a good goal. What should we be doing from within towards the long-term goal of libertarian socialism?
Partly it's educational, partly it's organizational. So at the educational dimension, what we would do and have to do is, first of all, develop our own visions of the future society and try to learn about them and try to get others to understand them, try to get others to contribute to our understanding of them. That's educational programs. At the organizational side, we should be simply developing alternative institutions. For example, self-managed workplaces with sharing of work roles. Robin Hanel, who you mentioned, is one of the people who's done a lot of work on this, as Michael Albert and others. Yeah, we can do that. And a lot of it's going on. There's a recent book by Gar Alperovitz reviewing initiatives of that kind all over the country. So it's both. Both develop the understanding of some better future for yourself and for others, and you also try to work towards constructing it.